Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Squires, and this is Couchers Podcast, episode number 178. And my guest, Zia Uddin, fantastic drummer, wonderful human, and has been a person that I've known since I was 21 years old, and was always, one of those players who I had access to, that I could talk to. We were even roommates for a short while, and he just was always an inspiring guy. He was always getting gigs. We were a part of a circle of, like, a community of people um, that played music together. All this whole crew from Spokane. He goes into it. He can explain it much better than I can. But he also explored playing outside of that circle, and that was very inspiring to me because I was a kid. I was just happy to have been accepted into any circle. So he was super inspiring to me. So he played in the first band that I played in, kind of like he sat in with them. But he also played in Inflatable Soul with the Cornell siblings. He was in Shovel Jerk. He played in Mayfield Four. Excuse me, Mayfield Four, who that was the band that introduced the world to Myles Kennedy initially. On a smaller scale than all the things he's gone on to do. But Zia continues to play with Myles. They've got a lifelong friendship. Um, and he's got a new band called Jaws of Brooklyn, which is more of a retro-y soul band thing. They just finished recording down in Muscle Shoals, so look forward to hearing that and hearing his amazing drumming. And I just saw a video of him tracking some hand drums, which is great because he's a great percussionist also. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I had a great time, and I think Zia did too. So, if you are enjoying the Couchers podcast, please support us. Nothing says thank you like money, and the money that you support Couch Riffs with goes directly to Couch Riffs. Uh, you know, Not so much this side. This stuff I can do on my own. The video stuff, I have to recruit some help. It's a lot more time and work, and that goes a long way toward helping to make that happen. So thank you for supporting Couch Riffs, folks who are, and if you're considering it, thank you, thank you, thank you. There's an episode that Zia, my guest, played on. Wishing Well, originally written and recorded by Terrence Trent D'Arby in 1987. Zia killed it. Everyone killed it. Everyone killed it. It's killer. It's dead. We brought it back to life. It's like, yeah, it's great. So if you like that, you can download the audio at Patreon. That's the only place where you can download the audio from these cover songs. So that's some incentive. Thank you to folks who are supporting. That's all I have to say. Thank you to River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. River City Guitars, coincidentally, Zia is from Spokane, as well as all those folks that we were talking about earlier. River City Guitars is carrying the Marvin Guitars CN90, which I co-designed and was released earlier this year. It's awesome. Kicks ass, just like Marvin Guitars and just like River City Guitars. So rivercityguitars.com and at River City Guitars on social media. If you have an instrument or a collection, something vintage or cool that you want to get rid of, you want to sell, you want to move, you want to turn something that you have into money to do some project. You want to build a fence in your yard or something, that thing's going to cost you thousands instead of hundreds of dollars now. Jeez Louise. But whatever you need, I wouldn't send you anywhere that I wouldn't go myself. And River City Guitars, every day is a buying day. So reach out to them, sales.rivercityguitars@gmail.com. I love these guys. That's it. Okay? Listen, Don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, just imagine, how do you want people to treat you? You want people to be nice to you, or just at least not be an asshole to you. Just do that to other people. Just be cool, man. Don't be a dick. Okay, there we go. I just you know, technology, Zia. It's a
Did we do it?
it's a fucking marvel. You know, I just,
Did we do it?
if you can imagine, I just dragged R2 because it looks like a pyramid, right? An upside down pyramid, and I just had this like phone icon in the middle of the screen. So I was like, that's not gonna look good. But I got us,
You're like an AV. You're like an AV genius.
basically I moonlight as an IT guy. So if anyone needs to launder some money, hire me to do your IT because we'll be working. I'll tell you. Did you try the ON/OFF button? Huh?
you're you're doing it.
We're
We're
doing.
doing it.
It's working. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you, man? It's great to see you.
It's really good to see you. It's always good to see you. It's been 2.5 years since I got that pleasant surprise in Albany, New York. Uh,
Yeah.
you guys were playing the Upstate Concert Hall or Upstate Music Hall, and I didn't know that you were out with Miles. I had no idea.
It, yeah, man. It was a pleasant surprise for me because this is it. Like this was a stop that was, I think, it was Saratoga Springs, right? Like it was kind of. I felt like it was kind of in New York. I felt like it was kind of middle of nowhere, but like it's such a really cool, like village kind of vibe to that town. It was really cool, man. And anyways, um, yeah. So we were out. Let's see. I was out with Myles Kennedy. We were doing a U.S. run. Walking Papers, a Seattle-based band, was opening for us. They're fucking amazing, by the way. Like they're just an amazing group of dudes and good and just an incredible band. But anyways, they were opening, and yeah, I get this backstage. I get this knock on the door. Someone comes back and is like, "Hey, there's someone out there that says they know you." And I was like, "I don't know anybody in Saratoga Springs. Like, like who is it?" It's like they said their name is Mike Squires. I was like, "What?" It was the coolest surprise, man. It was that was fantastic. I loved it. It was great to see you. It's totally unexpected.
Well, yeah, right? God damn, I don't know why now your audio is coming in on my channel. Will you speak for me?
Yeah, yeah. Hello, hello, hello.
It's just there it is.
Testing,
You know what?
testing,
It's
testies.
gonna be one of those. We're not gonna mess with it too much. It just this
All
is
right,
what we got. This is what we ended up with somehow today.
let's just do it.
Oh, maybe it's
I'm
because
either way. I'm stoked.
I'm super stoked to have you here. Sorry for the interruption. This is
That's okay.
the technicalities. Um,
It's all good.
so you and Miles have this super long history. I've actually, you've been brought up a number of times on the podcast because,
Really?
well, just in the context of me talking about my musical history in Seattle and how I fell in when I first showed up. I accidentally fell in with that Spokane crew because I had this Jackson guitar and a crew cut, and fucking nobody wanted me in their band, right? So I saw Eat the Feeling, and Doug was like, "Yeah, well, Bert quit to join this other band. It's a more popular band, and that was a band you were in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you lived downstairs, and so you were a part of that Spokane crew that I met, and
Yeah.
and the that had this huge impression on me. Like you guys were all doing it.
We were trying to do it,
I mean, to a
but no, it
country
it
kid.
was a great. I mean, I felt like the so for those watching, like I've known like Mike and I were actually like roommates for a brief period of time.
19.
I lived up on Capitol Hill in Seattle, and there was a Spokane crew that sort of ran together, played music together. I almost feel like looking back on it, it was almost like a collective, right? Because it was a sort of rotating
Yeah.
group of musicians that were. It was Doug and Dan and Joe. Man, Joe was in the mix, and Bert Byerly and you and me, and like it was a group of probably like 8 or 9 musicians that sort of rotated in and out. And so, anyways, yeah, we actually were roommates for a brief period of time, which was a blast, and just had a great time. I mean, it was such a seminal time, and yeah. So Bert, at that time, I was playing like I think I was doing like some percussion, maybe playing like percussion with Eat the Feeling. What was that same
Oh,
kind of core group?
right.
Remember that? Like kind of like there were some kungas and like I was sort of playing percussion, which was a blast because Doug Sowers played drums, great drummer,
Great drummer.
and yeah, man, and a great guy. That core group of people also just fantastic, like really good humans, man. It was fun. And then from there, yeah, I went on to play with. So Bert Byerly was in that mix too, another like killer musician. He was such a great bass player, man. And he went on to play with a band called Inflatable Soul that were basically the Cornell siblings. So Chris Cornell's siblings, his older brother Peter, and then Susie, and then a couple of the younger siblings as well. And so Bert played in that band. Also, Joel Tipke played in that band. Remember that? Joel was the guitar player in that mix. And so then I went on to play with that band for a period of time. It wasn't that long. I think it was with them for maybe a year, maybe shorter than that. It was a short run, but it was fun. And go ahead.
A long time though.
What's that?
A year feels like a long time when you're in your 20s.
For sure, it's forever when you're in your 20s.
Yeah, feels like a month now.
But it was a blast. It was a great time, and it was definitely a band that was sort of kind of more sort of up and coming in the Seattle scene at the time, and a lot of great shows. And they were also just great people, man. I've lost track of Pete Cornell over the years, but really good guy, and all the siblings. That family is just a great group of people, So lost track of them a bit, but a great group.
I feel like I just saw something come up where he started a coffee.
Oh, interesting. And did I talk to you about this before? Was it in Nashville or something, or like?
No, I think so. I'm not positive. It was something that I saw and I was like, oh, interesting. But
Yeah, he's good peeps. That's that whole family, like I said, just a great group of people.
Here's a fun fact. My first real show was one of those Gasworks concert series shows.
Yeah.
Playing bass with Eat the Feeling, opening up for you guys an Inflatable Soul.
Is that right?
That was my first real show.
Holy
We played
smokes.
a backyard party before that. But
wow.
Factoid, Bert Byerly is integral to how and why I play bass. Like I'd never played a bass before he left Eat the Feeling, and they were like, I need a bass player. And I said, I play bass. And just, faked my way in. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
Bert was great. Bert, he was super. I mean, still to this day, I think back and I was like, man, that guy was so fucking talented, man. I mean, that entire group of musicians, Bert, Joel, Doug, Dan, I mean, all those folks were just Joe, all those folks were just such a talented group of musicians, including yourself, man.
I worked hard for a lot of stability.
The classic Larry David.
Yeah. So I wanna ask you, like, I have so many questions about pre-Seattle, like Spokane vibes, and then also there's like a blank of 25 years where I saw you 6 times. You know,
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I've met
exactly.
like Mayfield Four, the Bachelors played a few shows with you guys, and
Yep,
sort of randomly bumped into you a few, like 6 times over 25 years. We have a lot to talk about.
we do. Let's what. So she was. Hey, by the way, my sister says hi.
Oh, sweet. How's she doing?
She was like, she's doing great, man. She's in Brooklyn, but anyways, I was telling her, I was like, hey, I'm going to do a thing with Squires, and she was like, Mike Squires? And I said, yeah. She goes, he's one of the nicest dudes. And then she breaks into this story where like you guys ran into each other at SeaTac at some point. I don't even know when, but at some point in the past, let's say 10 to 20 years, you guys ran into each other at SeaTac and you were chatting. Like somehow you recognized each other, whatever. You guys were chatting, and she was waiting for a car to pick her up, and you were like, hey, where are you headed? And she was like, I'm headed to Capitol. And you're like, you know what? I'm headed in that direction. I can give you a ride. And she's like, she's like, Squires is the nicest dude ever. So anyway, she says hi.
I mean, why spend money if you don't have to? You know what I mean? What's the point? I'm going there.
It was a good look. You're a nice dude.
I I remember that. I think that was like
Yeah.
home from one of like a fly out kind of a thing. So I think I had my car. I either had my car in long term parking, or or we just or she just got in the car and we just made an extra stop. Like a taxi. It's easy.
That's awesome.
That's so
That's awesome. I love it.
also,
You want to chat about Spokane?
yeah, man. So you're a fucking crusher drummer, and
Oh, thank you, man.
before I ever met you, I heard those characters that we've already sort of touched on, all the Spokane people. Everyone spoke so highly of you. So to me, this guy that was like an outsider, whenever I met anyone that they talked about excitedly, I was, it made a big impression on me. And that's you. That's is Joel from Spokane? He is.
Yeah, Joel's from Spokane too, exactly.
And Myles for
I've
sure.
been so Miles, obviously from Spokane. Yeah,
Rob Kidd.
the history is that Rob Kidd, exactly, another incredible musician that I'd be remiss to not mention how talented that dude is of a vocalist. But anyways, yeah, the history is that me, Miles, Joel, and several other dudes played in a band a high school band together. I met Miles in junior high school. I think it was in 8th grade or something, but we go way back. And then it turns out that I met him in jazz band. At the time, I was just learning how to play drum kit. He played trumpet at the time and was also just like learning how to play guitar. And we just started chatting and just discovered like we had all this great music in common that we loved. And so you fast forward like maybe 12 months from that time frame or something, that we formed a band together. And in that band again was Joel, Miles, myself, a couple other dudes. It was called Bittersweet.
Yeah.
Bittersweet.
And
And
the high school, the 80s kid.
yeah, totally. And I think Miles may have had a Jackson, and like I had this little orphan drum kit that I got together. But anyways, what we ended up doing was like we formed this band, and then basically, as I remember, like we had some pressure from our parents. Like all of our parents were like, you need to get a day job. You need to get some kind of job after school, and like. So anyways, what we did was we were like 16 at the time or whatever. And there was a local bar in Spokane called Gatsby's.
Yeah, of course.
And so we went and auditioned. Like we played a couple of shows like in Grange halls and stuff like that. And then anyways, went to Gatsby's, we auditioned, and made these auditions.
You had to audition to play at Gatsby's? That's
Yeah.
old school.
Yeah, because it was totally old. So, but we're talking about like 1986 or something, like 87. It's like, everyone, you had to audition to play there because it was a pretty coveted slot. Like there were older bands, obviously, like, these dudes that were, 21 and over that wanted that slot because it paid pretty well. And you played, I think you played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or no, maybe it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I think it was 4 nights. And you had to play 4 sets. So like you had to learn, and each set being like 45 minutes to an hour. So like you had to learn how to play like 4 hours worth of tunes. But it paid well.
Thing.
What's that?
The traditional like Van Halen kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. But it paid well. I mean, it paid well. The downside to it was that like, and our parents, I don't know how that happened, but our parents somehow like had to sign these waivers saying that it was cool for us to play at a bar and that we'd remain backstage and that like we wouldn't drink and all this kind of stuff. So the downside was that like, the upside was like, it was incredible. Like what an amazing experience. And, we're in the mix in Spokane. We think like, we're so cool. We're in Spokane. We're doing it. We're making it as musicians. We're in high school. The downside was that no one fucking like, I think, we barely graduated. Like I'll speak for myself. I barely graduated from high school because I missed so much school, staying out till, 2:30 in the morning or whatever, so, but it was an amazing experience for sure. But Myles was in that mix. He was in that band, Joel Tipke and a couple other dudes. So it was a blast. I mean, it was a great experience. And from there, we formed another band. And then at that point, that's when Myles decided to kind of do his own thing. And then Joel and I, with Rob Kidd, another, again, great vocalist that was in Nevada Bachelors, and then bass player, we moved to Seattle. So that was kind of sort of the why in the road at that point. And that's what brought me to Seattle in whatever it was, 1990 or 91 or something.
That was Widow's Party?
Exactly. That was Widow's Party. Exactly right. And
that's a perfectly named band also. Is like you had the Bittersweet name in the 80s and 91 comes and you're like Widow's Party. Kind of sounds dark, moody. Was that band imagine that band like a cross between the Black Crowes, the Beatles, and Queensryche?
Yeah. It was like Queensryche meets Alice in Chains or something.
It's like dark.
It was dark for sure. But it was a blast. And, and we loved like, that was a time when, and really what brought us to Seattle was kind of the Seattle sound that was happening. Was sort of, we were big fans of like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. And earlier, I would say in the 80s, kind of, Queensryche, so sort of a little bit of that prog sort of thing that was happening. And really that's what took us there. And we thought we'd have a lot more opportunity in Seattle versus Spokane is what, and then you get to Seattle, it's like, holy shit, like everyone's doing this. Like it's so saturated. But it was also a super exciting time, but it was also just like everyone was doing the same, not the same thing, but like a similar thing, right? Everyone was sort of trying to make it at the time in Seattle. And so it was just, we found ourselves, again, like really young, but just not being able to get those weekend slots at the, the local bars and that sort of thing.
I remember what a hustle it was to try to get a first opening spot on anything Thursday or later.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times you'd
exactly
get a coveted headlining Tuesday night gig.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we have you guys headlining on Monday night. You're like, oh, wow, that's going to be amazing. Like, how many? 5 people are going to be there.
Yeah.
All our buddies. That's it.
It may be. maybe your buddies will show up on Monday for you.
Yeah, exactly.
They might have.
Exactly. But yeah, but yeah, we found ourselves in Seattle just kind of, again, I think there was so much happening. It was also super exciting time with everything else going on. And it did seem like, I mean, you were there too, man. It did seem like everyone was getting signed at the time. It just seemed like the record labels just descended upon Seattle once they realized that, like, oh, this is a thing, whatever you want to call it. It's a thing. It's a sound. It seemed like all of a sudden just the record labels were just like descending on Seattle. And there was a time where like everyone was getting signed. You were like, oh shit, maybe we stand a chance of, doing something or getting signed or whatever. But it wasn't in the cards for the Mighty Widows party. It wasn't in the cards.
Think about all the people that you've known in your life that have had a quote, like a record deal or a development deal or a demo deal, where there's just that, it's such a hard swinging pendulum, man, you know, where the excitement of that opportunity comes up, and then, you go through the motions, everyone's got that energy and what you believe to be momentum, and then you deliver it and you hear crickets back, and there's just like, and then you get, your career is essentially frozen until they say, okay, fuck off, we don't want to have anything to do with you, we don't think we can sell
Yeah.
or whatever. It's
Yeah, exactly. It can be really, I mean, it's really, I mean, I've been signed now several times to labels, right? And it can be really, it's just, it can be just, I don't know. It's so disheartening. It really is, man, because and once you get out there, you also realize like there's so much talent out there. There's so many talented musicians out there. Like there's, we just, there's so many talented drummers out there, right? I mean, I'm always overwhelmed. It's like, I hop on my rig and it's like, try to do the thing where it's like every week try to learn something new, but it's like, holy shit. I mean, with the technology now, you realize like, oh my God, there's so many incredible musicians out there that are so good. And that's the thing, is just like, in that grand scheme of things, I think looking at things holistically, especially within the music industry, yeah, man, it can be really disheartening. I think that's ultimately, I think that's what led to the demise of Mayfield. Was that sort of thing. It's just like we were such firm believers in what we were doing, but the labels got, it's a machine, and it's just it can spit you out as fast as it sucks you in, and that can be disheartening at times. But anyways, at the time, Seattle, whatever was happening was just awesome. And I loved going to the shows. I loved seeing the bands. It was just a great time. And that's around the same time when, Widows Party was in Seattle. That band broke up. Joel was playing with Inflatable Soul, which was the Cornell siblings. Then Bert went to play with Inflatable Soul, and then I ended up there as well, and had a brief run with them, which was great. And as a matter of fact, that's around the same time when, I think I told the story before, but Myles was in Spokane. Like Myles had stayed in Spokane and had his own gig going on. And we were what's that?
Was he doing Citizen Swing then?
He was doing a different band and then started doing Citizen Swing. And I remember we have this mutual friend that we're still both really close to, Randy Howell. And Randy lived in Seattle for a brief period of time. Actually, with Doug and Dan, he lived with them for a brief period of time. It was like this pizza pipeline crew from Spokane that lived together in West Seattle. But Randy had kept in really close contact with Myles, as did I. But all of a sudden, Randy shows up one day to our house. We lived in a separate house. And Randy shows up one day with a cassette tape. It was a demo. And he's like, hey, I'm going to play you this demo, man. I said, great. So he puts in this demo. And it was like really, it was like kind of like funky. I don't know how to describe it. but it was a Citizen Swing demo, and the music was really kind of funky and upbeat, had a horn in there, and it was, you know. But the thing that blew my mind was like the vocals. I was like, holy shit, who's singing? Like this dude rips. It's incredible. And Randy's like, you don't recognize who that is? And I was like, no. He goes, that's fucking Myles. And I was like, what? What happened? Like in the course of like literally 12 months, right? Like, you know, probably 18 months, you know, this dude that was so talented, like such a talented guitar player, like Myles is always an incredible guitar player. And there's irony there because people here, and I know him to be an incredible guitar player, right? The thing that blew my mind and still blows my mind are his vocals and how well he can sing. But anyways, that demo shows up and I was like, that completely blew my mind. Everyone now knows him as like this, you know, incredible vocalist. And to me, that's still the surprise, you know, the thing that's a given for me, that's like, he's just a killer guitar player as well. But anyways, that's it. So Randy shows up with this demo. I was like, yeah, that's Myles singing. It just blew my mind. And so so they were doing some shows. It was Citizen Swing. They were doing some shows in Seattle, and they would come over and stay with us at the house. Like we had this big house in West Seattle that we rented, and so they'd come over and stay with us, play gigs. We'd hang out. And then there was a brief period of time when Myles was kind of filling in Inflatable Soul as well. So we had that connection. And so we did that for a while, and then I played that kind of Inflatable Soul for me. Just I left the band, and then after that, just finished. I was going to the U, so I was going to University of Washington. I finished up, and then right after I finished up at college, basically I get a phone call from a band based out of Coeur d'Alene, Washington, called Shovel Jerk. It was the former members of Black Happy.
Yeah.
And basically what happened was, again, another classic like music industry situation where Black Happy was an incredible band, like this amazing,
legendary Northwest band.
Legendary band. They were incredible. It was a 9-piece, I think it was 8 or 9-piece band, right? They had a horn section. Like they were doing this thing before anyone else was doing it. They were like combining like aspects of metal and rock and horns, and like it was this whole thing. It was really cool. And so anyways, and they were, you know, Black Happy had been going like all these years, right? Throughout. As a matter of fact, at one time, Bittersweet and Black Happy rehearsed in the same rehearsal studio in Spokane, Washington. So I've known those dudes for a long time. And so what happened, classic music industry thing, was like a record label comes to the band and says, to the kind of the core, it was like a core 4 dudes, right? Black Happy comes to the kind of core group and says, hey, you know what? You guys would be so much better off as a 4-piece band. Like you should dump the horns and this whole other thing. Like, and you guys would be amazing just as a 4-piece, kind of, you know, just streamline it down. And so that's how Shovel Jerk was formed out of Black Happy. And something happened with their drummer. And then I get a phone call to come in. The 2 brothers in that band came out to a show. I was playing with a different outfit at the time in Spokane, and then said, hey man, we'd love to have you audition for the gig. You know, we've got a record and some tour dates and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, yeah, so that'd be great. So that's how I ended up in Shovel Jerk, was doing that. And so I moved back to Spokane basically to do the Shovel Jerk thing. And that band toured pretty extensively throughout the U.S. And it was a great experience for me because I didn't have to go get a day job after college. It was like, yeah, I'll just go tour. That's cool. But the thing was, it wasn't my band, right? It was their band, and it just wasn't for me. It was just one of those things where you're on the road and just wasn't in a great state. And so during that time, all during that time, I was on the road with them. Myles and I had always, we grew up together. We're best friends. He's one of my best friends, so we've always kept in touch. And so while I was out on the road with them, he and I would always chat, maybe like once a week or something. We'd just shoot the shit. And so through those conversations, he was saying, I think it's time for me to do something different than Citizen Swing. And he's like, and I told him and he's like, where are you at with your thing? And I was like, I think I'm done with my thing as well. I'm just not in a great space, man. And I don't know if you've ever, they're good people, man, in that outfit, Shovel Jerk. But I don't know if you've ever toured and experienced like that. It's like when you're touring and unhappy, it's like not a great, it's pretty miserable.
It's like being on a ship at sea. Doesn't matter
Correct.
how much you like the crew, you're not going anywhere.
Correct. You're kind of stuck, and it's like
helicopter rescue.
And that was, yeah, exactly. So I felt like in a lot of ways, man, like having those conversations with Myles and kind of figuring out, we sort of started to kind of pre-plan what the next thing was going to look like, what it was going to be. And we started talking about, hey, once once I'm done touring, let's get together and just start playing, And so to me, that was it was almost like a life preserver. I was just like, oh God, thank you. And that's what happened. So yeah.
Was Rouse in Shovel Jerk for a minute?
What's that?
Was Jeff Rouse in Shovel Jerk for a minute?
I don't know. Could have been after I departed, because also Bert was in Shovel Jerk, I think for a really short period of time.
I feel like I remember.
And actually the drummer that played in Citizen Swing, a super nice guy, great drummer. His name is Mike Shergy. I believe he was also in Shovel Jerk for a period of time. Again, all this after my departure, but yeah. So I finished up that tour. Like I said, it felt like someone had thrown me a life preserver. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And so he and I, so he and I started getting together and just playing music, just started jamming. He had some stuff written, and so we kind of formed the band. I guess Mayfield Four was based or formed around that.
We had the pleasure of playing 2 or 3 shows with you guys. One in Seattle, one in Spokane. What was the place called? It wasn't Gatsby's, but it was down there like one of those roads that goes under an overpass. It might be a train overpass or something, right?
Yeah, it could have been there used to be a venue there called Outback Jacks. It could have been that.
I think
that's exactly. Was it? Yeah. Because we actually ended up doing a live EP. Like we brought in a mobile studio just after we were signed to Epic. We brought in a mobile studio and actually did a live EP that was recorded at that same venue.
Oh, is that right? That's got the Marvin Gaye cover on it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's got Inner City Blues on it. Yeah, exactly. It's the sort of the rocked out version of Inner City Blues. Yeah.
Killer.
It was fun. Yeah.
Did it there? Shit.
But yeah, man, it was and then Mayfield had a great run, and that was me and Myles, Marty Meisner, and then a guitar player at the time that started with the band, Craig Johnson, that was later replaced by Alessandro Cortini, who is now he's in the mighty Nine Inch Nails. He's been with Nine Inch Nails now for a number of years, but man, he's super talented.
What's he do in that band?
He plays keys and he's like the multi-instrumentation, right? So he does keys, he plays guitar sometimes, he plays bass sometimes. He's the dude that just, he sort of wears all the hats, but he's just a crazy and a great singer on top of it. He's like all the dudes in that band especially Alessandro, two dudes. And I think actually did you interview Alon?
Yeah. That guy's fun.
Yeah. So the two dudes in that band that to me, and they're all killer, like just amazing musicians. Robin is, but like Alon and Alessandro in particular are just unbelievably talented. Like Alon is a great guitar player, he's a great singer, right? He's got the New Regime thing. He's an incredible drummer. I mean, he plays the cello. Like every time, I'll go out to see Nine Inch Nails, through my corporate work, like I'll be wherever. I'll be in Chicago or something, and then, connect with Alessandro, go out to see a show, and, just to watch those dudes at work is it's next level, man. It's just fucking next level.
So wait a minute, is Alessandro from Spokane, or is he someone from LA that you guys met and like...
Alessandro's an honorary Spokanite. No, he's actually he's from Italy, and after Mayfield did the second kind of full length record as a 3-piece. And then after that, we needed to find another touring member of the band. And so we did these, it's a whole other, we could do this whole other podcast based around like open auditions in Los Angeles. And anyways, we hired a dude. What's that?
You guys did one of those at a rehearsal, like at a rehearsal studio where there was like a line of people.
Yeah. It was at SIR, which is the pretty well-known rehearsal studios in LA. Yeah, and I wouldn't say like we had a line of people, but like there's a dude in LA that's like he's known as the dude to like to connect musicians and yeah, exactly. You got it. And so he's been around forever. And so he's the dude that set up these open auditions in Los Angeles. And like I said, it wasn't like there was a line of people or something, but like, he had set it up so that like from whatever, 2 to 4, every 30 minutes, there's going to be a new dude that hops in there, and you play one song with the guy. And if there's a vibe, then do another 2, they'll do another 2 songs with you, right? For a callback. Or conversely, if you do one song with the guitar player and it's not vibing, then that's cool. You can just, ask them to, hey, great job. And,
let me ask you this, because this is fucking intriguing. I love this. Were there any train wrecks?
Yes. I mean, there were a couple train wrecks, but yeah, but I mean, at the same time, man, like, there was several dudes, and Myles has a far better memory than I do, but like there was one dude there's a couple dudes that came in there. Like one guy in particular, I remember he comes in there and he was getting his guitar out, and we were just sort of chatting with him. And I think it was Myles, and Myles was like, "Hey man, you look really familiar to me. Like have I seen you someplace, or have we met, or where do I know you from?" He's like, "Oh, well, I used to, in the 80s, I played in this band called the Bullet Boys, and it was like, what? Just like that kind of shit, like just super random. And the nicest guy, I don't recall his name, but like the nicest guy, and he was just looking for, another gig. I mean, he was just, the band had sort of run out of steam or whatever, and he was looking for like the next gig. And the nicest guy, and it wasn't the right fit for the band, but it was like, and then once he said like Bullet Boys, we were like, because I love that band at the time. I was like, oh, we had all these questions. We were like, dude, you were in Bullet Boys? Like that band was fucking rad. What have you guys been up? Like, what's been going on? But again, like it was more just, it was a cool hang. But there were several of those dudes. There were several of those dudes that came to audition, and the nicest people, but again, they were just looking for the next gig. There was also some, probably a couple train wrecks too, or just dudes. I wouldn't say more so train wrecks, but just like dudes people that didn't vibe, with the thing. But Alessandro came in. So that's how we met Alessandro. He came in and it was instant. It's like instant vibe. This guy was, and his English was not great at the time. But he was just incredible, man. And sang all the vocal harmonies, had all of his parts down, like it was just incredible. And so, I mean, that's how we ended up meeting Alessandro. That's how we ended up, he was out on tour with us. And basically he's kind of he was definitely very much a part of Mayfield, very much so.
That's amazing. Was there anyone that showed up to audition that hadn't learned the song and they were like, all right, how does it go?
Not that I can remember. I think Barry. Not that I can remember.
Get one audition.
And he does a pretty good job of, and I'm sure the dude still does. I'm sure. My guess is he's still doing the same thing, right? But like he did a pretty good job of vetting out, musicians to come in, and I think it's probably more vibe than anything else, with the folks that came in. Like, hey, this is someone that we're going to have to, it's like the cruise ship scenario you brought up earlier. It's like, we're going to have to live with this dude and he's got to live with us for months on the road. So it better be the right fit, but it was definitely Alessandro is and still one of my closest friends. The guy's he's just an incredible artist.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I had no idea that,
Yeah, absolutely.
So when the Mayfield Four ended, you went back to Seattle, not Spokane, yeah?
Yes, correct. Yeah, when Mayfield ended, that's not correct. When Mayfield ended, I stayed in Spokane for the most part. At the time I'd met my future wife in Spokane, and so we'd stayed there, and she was finishing up her degree at her college degree, so at Eastern. So we had stayed in Spokane, and the plan was just to kind of like, maybe we stay in Spokane. Like my parents were there at the time, and her folks, and so the plan was like, well, maybe we just stay in Spokane. And like I was saying earlier, I mean, our expectations were so high. I think for the second Mayfield full length record, it's called Second Skin, and we had super high expectations for that record. We all sort of poured our heart and souls into that record, and we thought, man, this is to this day, I'm super proud of that record. So I think we all were. And so and nothing happened with it. Like the label, it was just like, it was one thing after another. It was like, worst possible case scenario where like, we let the label choose the single, and then it went to radio, and then radio didn't really work it. And then it was kind of one bad thing after another. And I think we had an option for a third full length, and at that point nothing was happening, and like the label didn't want to push the record at the time for whatever reason, and it was kind of a shit show, and so again it was so disheartening that we were just sort of like, and I think especially Myles, I mean, that dude had just literally like poured his heart and soul into the record. Obviously he's a songwriter, and I think it was just so disheartening. And I remember he and I lived like probably 3 blocks from each other. And so he came over one day, just walked over, and we just sat down on my front stoop and just had a chat. And he was like, I don't think I can do this anymore, man. I just don't think I can do it anymore. Like I've just had it, I'm fucking tired, and I couldn't agree more with him at the time. I was like, you're absolutely right. And the thing that I remember we talked about the most was just like, hey, aside from the whole music thing, what's most important is retaining our friendship. That's the most important thing. And so we kind of, we made that agreement that like, hey, let's above, everything else, like that's what it's about at the end of the day, and the band stuff is, if it's time for Mayfield to be done, then it's time for it to be done. But like, that should have nothing to do with our friendship moving forward. And that's how we move forward. And so he went on.
Eighth grade. I mean,
What's that?
You knew each other since junior high school. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, he's one of my closest friends. I mean, and which kept us, thank God we had that. In retrospect, thank God we had that conversation, man, because that's really what kept us close and in touch all these years. I mean, it didn't matter if we were playing music together or not. We'd always chat with each other. We'd always see each other when we were in each other's towns, and like we'd always kept in touch. And he went off after that. I think he took some time off. I definitely took time off from playing because at the time I was just so disenchanted, disheartened by the whole thing. I probably didn't play for 12 months, and then slowly kind of snuck my way into the corporate world, so I could make money, so I could actually make money.
Feels good.
And started and started a family and did all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, got married. I had a family, and so like, yeah, absolutely. And then we moved ultimately from Spokane to Seattle, and which is where I'm still based to this day. But Myles had had some great opportunities ahead of him, with Alter Bridge and with the Slash thing, and just kept, and that dude, I've got to say, man, like, I know a lot of people in the music industry that work hard. But that dude is like, he's a machine. Like his work ethic is crazy. He'll be out with Alter Bridge and then have 2 weeks off, and then he'll be out with Slash and then have 2 weeks off or 4 weeks off, and then he'll be out with his solo stuff. It's like, I don't know how he does it. It's insanity, but his work ethic is crazy.
It's impressive.
It is.
Tell me about this thing that you have been working on, that you're home now, but you were working on down in Alabama.
Yeah. So we did the, let's see. So Ides of March. So I gotta say, so Ides of March, the new Myles Kennedy solo album has been out now, I think for 3 weeks or something like that. Super proud of that one. Super proud of Myles and everyone involved with that. And then I've been doing kind of as a side deal, I've been playing with 2 other musicians here in the Seattle area, probably for the past 5 or 7 years. And so we decided to do a new project that's called the Jaws of Brooklyn. And it's a female singer. So Lindsay Tisler's in the mix. Paul Christopherson plays bass. Brian Cohen plays guitar, and myself. And it's basically like, we had done several other projects in the past, and the thing that we always kept kind of going back to, the sort of the vein that we tapped into that we loved with this project, is like it's like a 60s garage pop soul sound. It's kooky. It's like, it takes those elements, and that we all love, and it's kind of this crazy mix of that. And so we kind of tapped into that vein. And then when we started thinking about, we were writing and then started thinking about like recording a record, and we were like, where would we go to record a record like this? Like, where would we go? And the place that came up was Muscle Shoals, was Muscle Shoals in Alabama, where it's like these, there's just a certain sound there. There's studios there, the gear, the people there, like and so we just finished recording a record there, and the debate that we were having, like internally, like, so each day, we would track, and then we'd go to dinner that evening, and and when we were at dinner, I think we'd have this constant debate. It was like, do you think we could record this record anywhere else? Like, if we took this producer, this amazing producer, Ben Tanner, he plays keys in Alabama Shakes. He and John Paul White own this studio. in Florence, Alabama. But like we were debating, like if we took Ben as a producer, like, and flew him to Seattle, and we recorded at some studio in Seattle, like, would we be able to get the same sound? And the answer is no. There's no way. There's just no way. There's something about, again, like, this album was done on all vintage gear. He's using like plate reverbs and like old school like AC30s and Dan Electros and vintage Ludwig kit, and something about the sound there, and the fact that he's from that area, so grew up with that sound. You know, I don't think we would be able to make a record like this anywhere else except for the Shoals in Alabama, you know, and it's awesome.
It's an amazing experience to just go down and be in that area to make a record. How long were you guys there?
We were there for, let's see, the bass player, Paul, and I were there for a week. I want to say like 7 days. And then we tracked basics. Then he and I flew back, and then Brian and Lindsay stayed to finish up tracking like guitar overdubs, and then she tracked vocals. So it was just a great, you know, so all in all, I think we were there for, you know, whatever, 2 weeks, something like that. And we tracked, all the basics were tracked live, you know, so we're all, you know, 3 of us are in a room together, and then the singer Lindsay was in a vocal booth, but we tracked everything live. I mean, so bass and drums for every single take are that take, right? And then same with guitar, and which is pretty amazing.
Made like that anymore, and it's
correct. That's exactly right. Records are not made that way anymore. And then, you know, Brian, the guitar player, would go back and to do some, you know, a few guitar overdubs, and then same thing with vocals. Like, you know, Lindsay went back to grab, you know, some vocals here and there, but for the most part, a record was recorded live, and there's a certain vibe to that as well, right? That you just like you were saying, records aren't recorded that way anymore. It's such a different process now. But I think that's what added to the vibe of the whole thing. It's like, hey, just, you know, you guys are good enough musicians, get your shit together. Like, you should be woodshedding. And then when you come in, like the, you know, producer was saying, which is true, it's like when you guys come in the studio, you guys should be ready to roll, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to hit record. You dudes and gals are going to be in the same room together. And that's how we're going to track it. That's because if you want that sound, that's how they used to track it. So if you want it, that's how you have to do it. And I think it's absolutely true, but it was an incredible experience, man. It was really cool.
Did you guys make any arrangement changes in the studio, or did you guys show up ready to go and like you didn't have to like cut anything down or extend any pre-choruses or anything like that?
Yeah, good question. There were a few tunes where we did have to tweak some stuff, but it was done on the fly. And really we kind of did pre-production remote like this, like we did it by Zoom, right? So like we sent demos off to the producer, Ben Tanner, and then he would review over tunes, like I think 2 at a time. And then we'd all get on a Zoom like this, and then he would go over his notes, and he'd be like, you know what, I'm hearing like, you know, like Zia, maybe at the outro, go double time, you know, maybe during the pre-chorus, less cymbals, like bring it down dynamically. So like you'd have notes like that for all of us and for each of the songs. So we did pre-production that way by Zoom. And then what we would do is we would tweak it, you know, we'd rehearse, and then we would tweak it accordingly. So that way we were ready to roll for the studio, and then we'd rehearse it, right? So just woodshed it. That way we were ready to roll. And then when we got in the studio, yeah, there was definitely a few tunes where we had to make tweaks kind of on the fly, where something wasn't working, like at a pre-chorus or at a bridge, and it's like, okay, shit, well, let's do it on the fly, and literally would make those changes on the fly, and then do another pass with that change, which is which can be definitely, you know, at times it's a little harrowing, but but it was great. It all worked out. And like I said, it was a great experience. It was cool to record that way again. I remember recording that way as kids, you know, like way back when that's how you'd make records, is like you'd be in the same room together. Everything would be ISO'd, like the amps or whatever, but you're all in the same room. You're looking at each other. You've got your headphone mix, and that's how you're tracking shit. And it was a blast to work that way again. It was awesome.
It's funny how it seemed like there was a time when nobody wanted to do anything that way, right? You were like, no,
Yep.
it's not how we do it, because we're gonna slice and dice this thing up 6 ways to Sunday.
Exactly. But I think that, yeah, and you get into it's interesting, man, because you know, I mean, sonically, sure, some of it makes sense because it's like, oh, we don't want anything, we don't want bleed over from the mics, or we don't want, you know, we want everything as isolated as possible, and we don't want, but you definitely, and I totally get that, and it works well. There's no question about it. But I think that there is definitely a little bit of a vibe that's lost, to that intrapersonal connection that you get, you know, that connectivity with you and other musicians being in the same room together, playing together. I think that some of that gets lost in translation a little bit when you cut a record that way, versus being in the same room, looking at each other. You're hearing everything live. Everything's being recorded live. It's like, of course, people are going to fuck up. Who cares? Let's go back. Let's retrack it or whatever.
I would argue that there are some positive and really outstanding qualities to recordings when there is bleed between instruments.
No question. I think so too. I couldn't agree more. It's interesting, man, because you'll have to chat with Myles about this. But anyways, he did a record not too long ago this is the second record now that Myles and I have cut with Elvis, and Michael Elvis Basquiat, who is an incredible producer. This guy is just, again, on a different level, you know, he's just amazing. And super talented individual. And so we've done 2 records, but I know that there's another, you know, again, it seems to be that people are cutting more and more records kind of more in that live sort of a setting, you know, because like I said, I do think that there's definitely something to it. There's definitely a vibe there for sure. Neither way I don't think is better than the other, but they're just different. They're just different.
We've both been around long enough now. We're both old enough now that we've seen a bunch of trends come and go, and even as kids seeing certain trends, sonic, you know, aesthetic choices that people make in recordings, you know, these drum machines and triggered or you know, gated snares and big, you know, whatever, chainsaw guitars.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, now you hear some of that stuff coming back, you know, John new album sounds like a Phil Collins album from the 80s.
Exactly. It's retro cool now.
Running for being in Sepultura or something, but you know.
It's retro cool now.
Yeah. Do you think that's weird that now, what we grew up on is retro cool now? Even the 90s is retro cool, buddy.
I know. It's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's a trip, man, but it's all cyclical. I mean, I think that it's all going to come around it's all going to come around again another so many times before we leave this, you know, before we leave this place, for sure. It's all cyclical. And what's interesting too is especially with the technology, especially hearing samples of shit, hearing samples of stuff that was original to the artist. Now you're starting to hear that as samples, and in different, whatever, if it's a hip hop tune or whatever it is, it's like it's a trip now because it's like holy crap. Like my son's 27 and he'll hear a tune where he's like, hey, check out this, whatever it is, check out this tune from this artist, and it'll be a hip hop artist, and he's like, I really like how the chorus does this or that, right? I'm like, well, do you know where that comes from? Like, that's a sample, man. Like, that's a sample. Exactly. That was a cool tune like 20 years ago, man. Like, whatever. It's like, that's a Massive Attack song, right? That's where the sample comes from, or whatever. Like, it's like, oh gosh, I had no idea. But it's amazing to be, you're right. Like it's a blessing and a curse to be, to be part of that, because it's like, we're definitely at a place, I'm at a place, I'll speak for myself, where I'm old enough where it's like, yeah, where all those samples are coming from, the original source of those samples. But like I said, at least my kid, like, has a deep appreciation for music, but would have no idea that's where the sample came from. He's just like, he just knows he digs it in the song, in the hip hop tune that sampled it now, right? But it's a trip.
I'm not grumpy about that either. I'm fine with that. I'm not a get
No.
off the lawn guy about hip hop samples.
No.
In the 80s, there were a ton of hip hop, like Beastie Boys, most famously, and especially Paul's Boutique. That album is like a sampling masterpiece. Like,
for sure.
I was listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire yesterday, and I was like, oh shit, there's a sample from whatever.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think even, what was it, man? I was listening to, I think it was last year, like, we're blessed here in the Seattle area. We have great, like, listener powered radio. So anyways, I'm a big fan of KEXP, a huge fan. So shout out to KEXP. But anyways, they did a thing, I think it was last year, a couple of years ago, where basically they took Paul's Boutique and then went back and then pulled all the original samples and like I think it was like a full day where they went through and played each sample, like the full song that appeared as a sample in Paul's Boutique. It was pretty cool.
Did they do it in sequence?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Exactly. So it's pretty cool
to plan that whole thing out. Whoever did that, I commend them. That's great. That's amazing.
Oh, for sure. That's like I said, that station is like, we're blessed to have it here, man. It
was KCMU.
It's awesome.
That long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I used to listen to them at the at the U as KCMU. You got it, exactly. Turned into KEXP, and now they're off doing their own thing. Yeah, exactly, man. It's hilarious. It's great.
Earlier, like way close to the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about the musical conversation that you and Myles were having, and the music that you guys had in common that you were fans of, right? What were those things that sparked your interest in getting behind the drum kit? Because you said that school band was where you learned how to play drums. That's true?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up playing like I've always wanted to play the drums, always. And even at the earliest age, but I remember like my parents were smart enough. They were like, we're not giving you drums. You're playing piano. It's like one of those deals. And so I grew up, so I took piano lessons as a kid, even though I always wanted to play drums. And then subsequent to that, I got tired of the piano lessons and I kept bugging my parents. So they put me into like symphonic band, like where you like concert band or symphonic band where you learn how to play the concert snare and the bass drum and the cymbals and like, the whole thing. But I didn't get to touch a drum kit until junior high school because there was a drum kit in the drum room, in the band room, that was for jazz band. And so that's where, and I think I was playing like in, symphonic band or whatever. And so that's the first time I really got to sit down behind a drum kit to play it was like after jazz band was over or whatever. Like I would hang around and just so I could kind of sneak on there for a little bit and play um, and that's kind of that's where I started. And then from there, which is also where I met Myles. And then from there, mowed lawns to buy a little like Ludwig drum kit from one of the neighbors, and then just kind of kept playing from there. I mean, that was also a time, man, when like, when it's like you'd put on an LP and you'd have like those giant, headphones, but you'd literally put the needle, it'd be like next to you or behind you. You'd put on the LP, and then you quickly, grab the headphones and put them on, and you'd start. That's how I'd learned a lot of the rock drumming. Anyways, was like listening to, playing along to Zeppelin or Hendrix or whatever the thing was, just like the Police, whatever it was, like whatever piqued my curiosity, I'd put it on and try to play along to that, try to learn the drum parts and play along to the songs.
So that's what let's pause there for a second. What was the stuff that you dove in the hardest when you first were like, okay, I'm really doing this? And what was the breakthrough moment when you felt like, holy shit, I just played this song all the way through and it was pretty good. Like I did it pretty good.
Yeah, I would
Oh,
say like,
that moment, right?
yeah, for sure. I would say I played along to a lot of Zeppelin. I'm a huge Zeppelin fan, and I would say probably I'm the most influenced by, like, from a rock perspective, I'm probably the most influenced by Zeppelin. So I played along to a lot of Zeppelin. I played along. Also a huge Mitch Mitchell fan, so I played along to a lot, or at least tried to play along to a lot of Mitch Mitchell stuff in the experience, because I just thought, like, as a three piece, like what they were doing, like, how are they doing that? And then also, stuff that, and then once I started in drum lessons, my parents enrolled me in drum lessons. And once I started taking drum lessons, my drum instructor was he was an old school jazz dude. So he was like, he would turn me on to certain rock drummers, but in large part, he had me playing along to jazz stuff, stuff like Art Blakey, Elvin Jones, like, things like that. And so it was kind of a mix, but like
Elvin Jones in high school.
I couldn't play it, but
Amazing.
yeah, I couldn't play it, but what I could do was play like the super dumbed down version of what Elvin was doing, I still can't play along to Elvin because it's like, yeah, it's, again, different level, and jazz isn't I love jazz. I just can't play it well. So, but that same drum instructor is what turned me on to things like, Carmine Appice, stuff like with stuff he was doing in Vanilla Fudge, and with Rod Stewart Band and all that stuff. So like I would take, put that on as an LP and then try to play along to it. But I would say like a breakthrough moment for me was being able to play, something Zeppelin, probably, like all the way through. Like I learned how to play like Rock and Roll by Zeppelin, and that drum, just even figuring out the intro to that song.
It's weird.
It is weird, but once I felt like that was a big breakthrough moment for me. It was like just learning. It took forever, right? You're just putting the needle back, and then you're just doing the thing, and then putting the needle back, and doing that 150 times or whatever. Finally, it's like, okay, now I've got it. And so to me, that was a big breakthrough moment.
You hear people say things like, "Oh, he or she very musical drummer," and it's kind of one of those things. It's fuck. It just is one of those things that kind of chaps me a little bit, because I think I get what people are trying to say, like, "Oh, very musical drummer," but drummers are musicians. They just don't make tones, and so what? Can you think of an example of a drummer that is particularly musical and not necessarily purely rhythmical.
I think that the classic. This also harkens back to. I just want to float it out there to Drummer Appreciation Month.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you know what? I was so jazzed about Drummer Appreciation Month that I was like, all right, this is going to be great. And then I got 2 weeks in and I was like, I can't do one episode a week. This is ridiculous. Like, what sort of appreciation am I showing for drummers? Like, they,
Come on.
they, yeah, no, they need more respect than this. And so I'm sorry that you can only I can only do so much. I'm but one man.
Okay, I'm just saying next time though,
Just
just consideration.
every month is Drummer Appreciation Month around here.
Yeah,
We just tag it on to May, you know.
I love it. I love it. No, I think that the I'm just giving you shit. I think the classic, in my mind, anyways, and I don't mean to be offensive about it at all to anyone else out there, any other drummers, but like I think that like the classic musical drummer in my mind that sticks out is probably Ringo Starr.
Yeah, man.
It's like that guy is on the surface, like what he's doing may sound, and I'm a huge Beatles fan, but on the surface, what he's doing appears to be like super basic and not complex and a little obtuse at times, but in the structure of the song itself and with what's happening sonically, it's just brilliant. It's absolutely perfect. And it's one of those things where it's like how many times, I mean, here's a great example. It's like, how many times have you played, like, have you seen a cover band, for example, and the drummer and they're doing a Beatles cover and the drummer is not playing what Ringo played, but like what the drummer thinks what should be there instead, like a classic 2/4 type thing. And it's like, that sounds terrible. Like that doesn't even sound like what's happening here. Like that sounds awful, right? Because again, I think, going back to Ringo being such a musical drummer is like whatever he was doing for the song. They also had, obviously, I mean, genius, George Martin was a genius producer as well, but whatever Ringo was doing for the song is just absolutely, I think it's brilliant and absolutely perfect, and to me, that's kind of the classic sort of musical, to me, that's kind of the epitome of like the musical drummer. Like he's again, like if you replace what he's doing in any one of those tunes, it's not the same.
He's doing exactly what needs to happen and
yeah,
what can happen without stepping on anything and not doing anything
correct
that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's minimalist for sure, but it's so tasty and it's so musical. It's just, again, every song to me is just, you listen to what he's doing, you're like, fuck, that's just genius, man. It's so perfect for the tune. And if he was doing anything else but that, it wouldn't be the same tune. It'd be something different entirely.
Like he's the opposite of Neil Peart, right? But also love.
He is correct.
What's not to love?
That's right. And I love busy drumming too, but I think it's like any other instrument. It's like playing that busy with that much technicality at times, at least for me, the musicality gets lost, and there's some great, just like there's, incredible bass players and guitar players and drummers out there but it's not my thing. It's just not, same for me. It's like, I think there's a huge lesson in what Ringo does, is trying to play for the song and being as tasty as possible and playing for whatever's needed for the song. It's like, there's definitely going to be moments within the structure of the tune where you can branch out and do a killer fill or do something that kind of shows off more of your technical side. But if that's all you're doing, to me, it's not. It's there's not a lot of musicality to
Substance.
that.
Uh, what? So, with all that in mind, backing up, what were those outside of Zeppelin and
Yeah,
Hendrix? Was there any contemporary music that was happening in the 80s when you got a kit that you were like, yes,
for sure,
this is
for
my
sure. Like
jam?
I love. So I liked. Well, this is. I was a big Kiss fan back in the day, like Peter Criss. So I liked Kiss a lot. Uh, um, I was a huge, still am. Like I think Tommy Lee is one of the greatest rock drummers, man. Like that guy is just whether you like butt rock or not, or hair metal or not. Like that dude is an insanely good drummer. Like he has a pocket and a feel, and again, like super musical drummer as well. Like very technically gifted, but also just a super musical drummer as well. So like I was a huge Tommy Lee fan, still am.
The
But
polyphonic way that he would do his cymbal snatches too, like whatever those are called. What do you call
yeah,
them? What do you call
the
them?
cymbal grabs
I mean, it was just
or
like
snatches.
it's just like so filthy, and it's technical, but super groovy. It never feels overly, it doesn't feel, I don't know, doesn't feel like he's trying to cop Keith Moon or something. It's just like,
No,
whoa, that was awesome. I don't even know what it just
yeah,
slapped me in the side of the face. I don't even know what happened.
yeah. He's just a great. Again, like he has a pocket that is just awesome, and he's just and a fantastic drummer. So I'm a huge Stuart Copeland fan. So I always tried to play along to Police records and kind of cop what Stuart was doing. Um, Also, I think he's just a brilliant drummer. A lot of the Steely Dan stuff, a lot of the drummers that were on the Steely Dan records, I always tried to play along to that stuff. Whether it was, it was always a myriad of drummers playing on there. Everyone from like Steve Gadd to Joey Mariota, but all fantastic drummers on those records. I always tried to play along to that kind of stuff. Of course, tried to play along to like Rush stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Like trying to play like Tom. I remember trying to learn Tom Sawyer or whatever it was. Like Neil Peart was just a super gifted drummer, and like a technical, fucking, technically a wizard on the drum kit. And so yeah, I played along to all that stuff, man. I absolutely I loved it. I thought it was great. It was always a big Cure fan, tried to play along to the Cure records, and just all that stuff was definitely up my alley.
For Musos, that band is hugely under celebrated and underappreciated, but I mean, they've gone through a few drummers. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. They've gone through. It's exactly right. A
But the
couple
Big
different
Bopper
drummers,
has
but
been around since the beginning, and that guy is ferocious.
yeah,
I never
yeah,
remembered
he's
his
a
name,
killer.
but go back and listen. Always incredible bass lines, incredibly
Yep,
creative, inventive, and the sounds are amazing.
it's incredible, man. Like someone pulled it up the other day, which was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony for the Cure, and like you're right, like every tune, it was like not you've got these killer melody, uh, underlying guitar counter melody a lot of time that's happening that Robert Smith is doing, and then great drums, but you've always had these killer bass lines. Like I think one of the tunes is like Fascination Street that they play, and it's like that's one of the most seminal bass lines, man. It is so cool and so growly and just like this nasty bass line. It's so cool, man. But yeah, it's huge Cure fan for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Now, when you are sitting down and you're like, you know, playing through songs with a band and you're writing drum
Yeah.
parts, you're working it out. What do you think has changed in your approach now as opposed to like 30 years ago and 20 years ago? Because 10 years will inform a lot, right?
For sure. Yeah, no question. I think that I think the approach has changed in terms of how basically like try to play for the song. Like how can I take how can I take the song to where it needs to go to? So like how can I take it from here and elevate it to here through not through playing as many fills as possible or trying to play as like, but basically like through groove, through a pocket. You know, what's the best groove for this song? What's gonna elevate it? And make it a better song at the end of the day. And I think that approach is different versus, I'd say, even 10 or 20 years ago for sure. I think 20, like flashing, going back 20 years ago is more about like, how do I get heard through the song? Like, how do I make the drums so they're better heard through the song, which is like really
myself.
Which I hate to, yeah, exactly. Which I hate to admit, but it's probably true. And then, versus how can I create the best pocket for this song, right? And then even 10 years back, I think that, it's even like, even going like flashing back 10 years, I mean, great example was like, it wasn't quite 10 years ago, but like working with Myles on the Year of the Tiger record, which was the album previous to this, which was definitely more about taking an approach that was like how, again, I mean, he would send over demos that were, at least for that record, there was no drum parts, right? So he demo a lot of stuff on acoustic and then send it over. And I was like, well, what are you hearing, man? Like, and he's like, just do your thing, but do what you think is going to elevate the song. Do what you think is going to be best for the song. And I think that it's a really smart way to approach things as well, which is like, you're going to elevate this. If you find the right groove and the right pocket and the right beat for the song, it will elevate the song. It'll elevate your playing. It'll elevate the song. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. So I think that my approach has changed from through that lens, through that perspective.
Let me ask you this. Because Myles was sending you acoustic demos and telling you, do what you think is going to elevate this song, did you feel a different pressure to deliver for him? Because this was you've known him and played in a number of bands with him, but it was never called Myles Kennedy, right? It was always a band. And did you feel a different kind of pressure, or was it always, did your friendship always provide a sort of comfort and trust where you knew that so long as you didn't stink it up, it was going to be fine?
Yeah. No, I think on the Year of the Tiger record, like we really didn't do a pre-production either. So, and we hadn't worked together for a number of years, like musically, we hadn't worked together for a number of years before Year of the Tiger. So like between Mayfield, which is ended in 2001 or 2002, somewhere in there, and the Year of the Tiger record, we hadn't worked together musically. And I know that he had been wanting to do a solo. So interestingly, like I'll go down this path for a second. Like Myles did a solo record probably, I don't know, 5 years ago. It could have been more than that, maybe 10 years ago. And so he did a solo record and shelved that record, and shelved it. I think just because it wasn't. It was more of a rock record, and I think that really wasn't what he felt best represented him as a solo artist. And so but anyways, there is an entire Myles solo record that was shelved. And so I think that he learned kind of from that experience what it was he wanted to do, and he and Elvis were chatting, and I think it was Elvis that said, "Hey, maybe like you should see what Zia's up to musically. Like that would that might be a really cool fit for the record." And Elvis was the one that had done the last Mayfield record. He had engineered it, and so that was the connection.
If you weren't familiar with him, will you just give him a quick bullet point of what kind of stuff this fucking wizard has been working on over the last 20 years? Because he's working.
Yeah, Elvis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything from Alter Bridge Slash, a lot of the like Seven Dust. He's done a bunch of different records, and just a super. And the guy's incredibly like he's a gifted guitar player. He did the new Wolfgang record. They're called Mammoth, Wolf Van Halen, right? Did that record. Just super talented. Not only engineer, producer, he's a killer guitar player, and the guy is just and also a close personal friend of mine too. But like so gifted, man. So he had engineered the last Mayfield record that we did, and at the time he was like 20. He was 24 years old when he engineered that record.
Right.
Like just one of these dudes that's just like just has the gift. And so when he and Myles were talking about doing the solo record, again, like that was the like we hadn't worked together obviously for years musically. We kept in touch, and I think Elvis suggested that to Myles, and then Myles reached out and said, "Hey, I want to do this solo record. Like, would you be interested at all in like contributing to it? I'd love to have you play on it." And I was like, "Yeah, man, of course, I'd love to do it. Just, send me a couple of tunes." And that's how we kind of started doing it. I think he'd send 2 or 3 songs at a time. And then I'd ask him, like, on some of the tunes, I had a pretty good idea of where to go with the songs. On other tunes, it's like, I'd call him up. I was like, what are you hearing here? And he's like, I'm hearing something like, kind of think like Paul Simon, Graceland kind of vibe. I was like, oh, fuck, I love that. That's so cool, man. And that gave me just like the perfect amount of reference to know where to go with it. Even then, so the reason why I'm saying this is because even then, so there was no pre-production. So it's me putting putting drum parts to these tunes. Then then we're in a studio in Orlando with Elvis. Like there's a full crew there. And then it's like the mics are set up. They're like, okay, let's go. Boom, hit record. And it's like, that's the first time they're going to hear whatever it was I put to that song, and it's either going to be. I was joking around with my wife.
You never even like recorded along to the demos and sent those to Myles and to check. He was just like you have that kind of musical relationship. So really, like
I think so.
Came on, and that was the first time. That's amazing.
Yeah, literally. And I was joking around with my wife before I left for that session. I was like, This session is either going to be amazing or it's going to be the fastest fucking session. Then I'm like get my ass kicked out of there. Like it's going to be, everyone's going to be like, we're going to move on here. Head back to Seattle. But it turned out really fantastic. And even then, so there were still a couple tunes. It was like I was hearing drums a certain way, and like Elvis, it's the classic producer thing where it's like you. And I try to go through an entire take as much as possible, but I get through it and a take. No one's heard the shit, the drum parts, and then all of a sudden you hear on the talk back, it's like, "Hey man, that sounded really good. Why don't you come on into the booth and let's discuss?" And usually that means like something didn't go right somewhere, right? And so like. So that I think that happened maybe on 1 or 2 of the songs where like where Elvis was hearing a different part, or Elvis and Myles were hearing a different part, and I'd worked up an entire thing that was just completely different, and that's okay. It's like that's generally why you do pre-production, and so like you make sure. But so You're the Tiger, that's how it went. Definitely on the Ides of March record. What Myles sent over were definitely the demos were pretty fully baked. Like he had he's also, beyond being an incredible songwriter and singer and guitar player, like he's gotten pretty fucking good, like on his Pro Tools rig or on his Logic rig at home, because the demos he sent over were definitely, they were pretty fully baked demos where he had, real like specific ideas of parts of songs, how he wanted drums to go and stuff like that. So it was great. And then same thing. It was just like, hey, what, are you hearing something specific for this part or that part? And he said, just do your thing. Just do your thing. It'll be great. Just do your thing. So it's like, okay. But the sessions were great. It was awesome.
So 2022 is going to be a pretty big touring year for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not going to be everyone's going on tour in 2022. They can't. Most people are going out this year, right? You look at those festivals.
Exactly.
It's insane.
Yep.
You guys have festival dates coming up?
There's talk of some stuff in the fall. I know we had some festival dates that were booked for late this month, so late June, that were canceled or postponed. I think that was in the Midwest here in the U.S. So, but I think Myles is going to do a couple of the non-festival dates, but a couple shows just acoustically.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's talk of the possibility of maybe doing something at least touring wise, in the fall. So, and I haven't received the full blessing in terms of releasing any dates, but my understanding is, it's going to be a strong possibility of fall tour dates, which would be amazing.
What about Jaws of Brooklyn? Do you guys have intentions of touring that and trying to support the recording on that level, or is it more of a recording project?
No, I think I think Jaws of Brooklyn we'll wrap up this. The next up is mixing, which will happen in another couple weeks, and kind of getting to a point where we can actually release a record, which would be amazing. And then that band will probably start gigging around the Seattle area here locally in July. Just start as things slowly start to reopen here. We'll start kind of gigging around here, and which will be a blast. But I think the hope for Jaws of Brooklyn is for us just to release a great record and hope to support it, later this year or early 2022, and maybe just start by doing some West Coast tour dates, which would be awesome. So the old school van and trailer kind of deal, which would be it'd be awesome. I'd love it.
It's decidedly a different experience to get in and build something from the ground up, right? Than
absolutely.
It's a hustle, man.
It is. And how about for you, man? What's going on musically for you? Because you are super talented musician as well. So what's going on musically for you?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, start.
I'm just lucky to be here, man. Really, that's it. I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to get people like yourself to come talk to me and lend their talents to these videos. I have plans for Couch Riffs. I want to tour Couch Riffs. So if I come,
that'd be awesome.
Well, here's the thing. I want to do the podcast in, whatever, any town that'll have me. I'll have everything planned way ahead. Obviously, I'm not going to roll in and throw it together willy-nilly. But I want to do a podcast on a stage in front of an audience, or in an unconventional space. A stage would be best, and a studio would be even better because, of course, the sound would be best. But so I want to, have this sort of Charlie Rose meets Jules Holland thing.
I love it.
So I do the podcast.
That's great.
It's an hour and a half, and then I have a band of players from a variety of bands from that area. And then
Yeah.
after the podcast is done, we do 5 or 6 songs for the audience, and then see you later, alligators.
I love it. That's a great idea, man.
But I got 2 gigs, man. I can't talk about it. But I mean like band gigs, not like shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That are on the horizon for you, sounds like, which is
Yeah.
super exciting.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
I don't think I don't get to talk about it yet.
Not yet. All right.
I don't think I told you about it actually.
But yes, I'm aware of it
Yeah.
and excited about it.
Fuck.
I think it'd be awesome.
If you'd have told me in 1992 or 1 that was going to be happening, I'd have told you were crazy, you know?
You would have told me to get the fuck out of the room. You're like, get out of here.
Get out of here. I'm not going to play with those.
Beat it.
Are you kidding me? Those guys are famous rock stars.
Exactly. Well, I'm excited for you, man. I know there's a lot of great things on the horizon, and love what you do here with the Couch Riffs. And also, I want to mention, like, I had a blast playing on that. First of all, thank you for allowing me to pick the Wishing Well tune, Terence Darby. That's one of my favorite tunes from the '80s, man. I love that tune, and it was such a blast. It was such a blast to do. So, thank you for having me.
Didn't you?
What's that?
Did you pick that song?
Yeah, I picked it because I remember you reached out and you said, "Here's the list. Pick a tune from the list," and the list was deep. Like, there was a lot of great jams in there for sure. But I saw that one and I was like, "Oh God, I love that tune." I don't know. I thought, well, maybe like, maybe Squires will will usurp it because it'll be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing Wishing Well. But I was like, I saw it and I was like, dude, that would be so fun to do. And so, yeah, so I sent that back to you. I was like, let's do it. Let's do Wishing Well. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. But it turned out it turned out awesome. It was a blast. And all the musicians, like, shout out to all the musicians that were on that thing, man. Everyone did a stellar job, including yourself. Special shout out to to the singer. That singer was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, he's amazing, man.
Wow. That was cool. Yeah. It was a pleasant surprise because I was thinking, man, who the fuck is Squires going to get to sing on this thing? Because it's not an easy vocal.
Here's the thing. I had been introduced to that band, and I had Ehab and Justin from South of Eden on the podcast, and I was like kind of familiar with their band. It's like not a throw, but it's like they lean into vintage rock, but sort of with modern production. And there's not a ton of subtlety to it, It's
right.
And so there's not a lot of opportunity for his voice to do as much as that's happening in that tune. But I came across a video of him singing, Michael Jackson in the gym at his gym, just on Instagram or something. And I was like, there it is. That's my guy.
That's the dude. Yeah. He's what a talent, man. Yeah. Great voice. And he just nailed the sort of the vocal vibe of the song. It's just like, that's the thing. It isn't something that just anyone can just bust out. Like, he really got in there, man. It was fantastic. What a blast.
He's a talent. I think that's a band for folks to watch out for,
Yep. No doubt. For sure. But that was fun.
I saw them on a bunch of festivals with Wolf's band, with Mammoth, and so him and Frank are gonna meet out on these festivals. Some of them are like 4 or 5 festivals. Like, you run into people, you see people at catering or whatever, So that's fun for me to imagine those guys meeting.
That's awesome. It's going to be great. But thank you, man, for having me be part of that. That was it's a blast. I'm going to post that to my IG here later today.
Zia, like I said, you know, before I was doing anything, before I knew my dick from a fucking door handle, uh, I got to Seattle. This fucking dumb kid who just fucking wanted more than anything to just like to just meet people and play music. All that's all I wanted to do. You were one of those people that was doing it, and I know, you know, hindsight and all that, you were doing it on a higher level than I was doing it. And so you were a person that inspired me, and you know, the things as things progressed for you, I was just like, man, how do I do how do I get opportunity? How do I do that? Like, how do I keep getting opportunities? I did. It took me a long time to figure out. One of the things is you can't be a drunk butthole, but I eventually figured it out. Mostly, um,
You definitely figured it out. I'm still trying to figure it out, but you've got to figure it out, brother.
but
You got it.
you were an inspiration to me. You were one of few people
Thank you, man.
that I had access to, that I could talk to, that were doing things that inspired me. You know, and so
No, thank you.
thank
I
you.
appreciate that, and I feel like that, especially that time with what we were doing, like I mentioned earlier, I really see that like it was kind of more of a musical collective. I think we all kind of helped to inspire each other. To be honest, it's like such a great group of folks, and everyone was so willing and so like generous, you know, with what they were doing musically. Like, and I think that's a rare. I think it's a rare thing. So I think we all inspired each other, man. But I thank you. I appreciate that.
The other thing that you gave me was a broken heart and a huge inspiration. I remember you saw the Jeff Buckley show at the King Cat Theater, and I learned that Miles
Yeah.
saw that show. But for whatever reason, I remember telling you like, I'm not gonna buy a ticket. I'll bet that no one can sing that well live. No one can fucking do that. That's studio magic. And I talked to you the next morning. Like I feel like I might have even woke you up when I came
What
downstairs.
did I say?
Tell me about the
What
show.
did I say?
It sucked, right? I was just all I wanted to hear. I needed to hear that it sucked. I needed to hear
Tell
that.
me how terrible. Tell me how terrible the show was.
Yeah, please tell me how terrible Jeff Buckley is live. And you were like, buddy, it was like going to church. And I was like, but a really shitty church, right? Like a terrible church where the minister's got no voice. And you're like, it was better than the record. The record, you gave me this whole thing. You're like, the record is so confined and you know, live it just
like I was a fucking music critic. I just wanted to know some diatribe.
I was just like, I fucked up so hard. I fucked up so hard by not buying a ticket.
It's fun.
And it was a good lesson for me to learn. It was a great lesson for me to learn in terms of
You
go to
know,
see bands that you want to see live.
yeah, for sure. There's no question. And yeah, I consider myself really fortunate to have seen that, to see like the force that is Jeff Buckley for sure. But we all do it, man. Like just real quickly, like to your point, one of my favorite artists that came up to the Daptone label was Charles Bradley. I fucking love Charles Bradley, and like I can't get enough of it. And I put off seeing, and he would like he was one of the darlings of KEXP here in Seattle, and I put off seeing Charles Bradley live. Like I had probably 4 or 5 opportunities. I kept putting it off. I was like, no, I'm gonna catch him somewhere else, and blah blah blah. And so finally, I bought my tickets to go see Charles Bradley. He was playing in Santa Barbara. And so, like, my wife and I, we planned this whole anniversary trip that was planned around a Charles Bradley concert in Santa Barbara. And it's not funny, but like it's a lesson. But like, unfortunately, he passed like 24 hours before he was supposed to play that show.
Right.
And it was just like, fuck. Like I was just totally devastated. Like one of these, you know, the guy was so talented, man. But secondly, like that was a lesson for me. I was like the same thing. I was like, fuck. why didn't I have so many opportunities to see this guy, different places, different dates for like probably the past, 5 years, and I kept putting it off. And here we are now. But anyways, I was totally devastated, and it was just like, So anyways, it's definitely it's a valuable lesson for sure.
I'm sorry you missed him.
Yeah, me too. And then on top of that, insult to injury, it was like they added like, obviously Charles Bradley can't make the festival still happening. It was like the small festival. So instead, we're gonna have Macy Gray. It was just like we didn't go. Like going to that.
I like Macy Gray though.
Anyways.
He's kind of rad.
She's kind of cool. I don't know. We have our A&R at Epic. This husband and wife team that ran our A&R at Epic Records when Mayfield was signed to them. They're the ones responsible to sign Macy Gray, and so like we were always like it was like having children, like having like what I equated to is like probably similar like having stepchildren. It's like you've got like all these different stepchildren, like. So you're always vying for like, your parents or your A&R's time. And it's like, no, we're doing stuff with Macy this weekend. And like, it's like, okay, geez. Okay. There's this constant thing. But anyways, yeah, they were actually responsible for signing Macy Gray. But Macy Gray for me was not a suitable replacement. You can't replace Charles Bradley. No. The guy was so genius. No.
Wow. But you know what? Kudos to her for stepping in on 24 hours notice.
No question.
I
agree. It can't be easy.
Even though her meteoric rise to success screwed you guys. Just kidding.
Damn it, Macy Gray.
I listened to her on a podcast pretty recently. And
oh, really?
And it's the Questlove. It's one of the few podcasts.
Yeah.
And I thought she was cool and interesting, and she talked about she was a little bit of a wild child.
Oh, I'm sure she was. She probably talked about the Mayfield Four. She was like, oh yeah, I remember
about you guys endlessly. She was like, my whole goal was to just fuck these guys from Spokane. I don't even remember what
was to derail.
Yeah.
My whole goal was to derail the careers of these four assholes from Spokane, Washington.
Yeah. She's like, fuck Spokane.
No. I wish Macy Gray nothing but the best.
Yeah. Me too.
Just set the record.
Everyone the best. You know what, Zia? I want everyone to get what they want so long as it isn't harmful to other people. Because
absolutely.
Because if people worked hard and got what they deserved, then they would be happy. Theoretically.
Yeah.
Let's not discount the idea that they're fully capable of being miserable, insufferable assholes. But I think that the world would be fucking amazing if you just wish the best to everyone, and hopefully that energy created the best for everyone, or lent it.
No question. And I think that's a great way to move forward with anything. It's like positive energy, and wish those around you well. Wish those around you the very best, man.
That's it. Even if you don't see eye to eye,
yep.
Wish people, hey,
absolutely.
Yeah, I see it.
I agree.
There are a lot of people I don't see eye to eye with here in this little part of the Hudson Valley of New York. But this is America. I live in America. You live in Seattle.
Absolutely.
You live in you live in an anarchist jurisdiction, and but I'm out here in America. I see all the different flying out here.
Sure. Well, I spend time. I mean, I still spend quite a bit of time in Spokane.
Oh yeah.
My wife's family's still there. I said, oh yeah, and Seattle and Spokane, they're only 300 miles apart. from each other, but very, as you know, like Spokane, very, very conservative. First of all, it's a beautiful city, and I grew up there. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's also a very conservative city as well. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're definitely going to run into, folks that have different viewpoints in Spokane for sure. But like I said, as long as we're tolerant towards each other's views and accepting and, wishing each other the best moving forward, positive vibes, it's all good. It's all gonna work out.
I hope so. Knock on press wood.
Do it.
Knock on particle board.
Exactly.
I love you, man. You're great. I've had a
I love you too, buddy.
time talking with you.
This was amazing. Thank you. And like I said, I mean, love the opportunity to do this as well as the Couch Riffs thing. That was a blast too. That performance was a blast. And
another one.
Like I said, yeah, let's do another one. I'm down. Whatever you want to do, I'm down. And I think that
Queensryche song.
What's that?
You think we could pull off a Queensryche song? We'd have to get someone that could really belt. Do you still have those chops?
Smiling next to you.
Are you trying to say you don't want to drum on the next one? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm saying shit. I mean, I don't know if Jeff Tate's still around, but I'm available for any vocals.
Jeff Tate.
No, man, but I'd love to do it again. I don't know what that dude's up to. He's probably around here somewhere. He's kicking around Bellevue.
He wears weird tank tops, and he's one of the he's one of the fucking great metal vocalists, right? He's one of
no question.
And he studied with that fucking the Maestro guy. Remember,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
yes.
He's one of the great metal singers of all time, and I'll give
Agreed.
I don't know, he got up and sang with Loaded a couple songs once.
Oh.
Yeah, so we were doing this. It was a benefit for. Do you remember? It must have been 10 years ago. Some cops got killed down in Lakewood. Someone walked in. And it was like a mass gun
at a coffee shop or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we played a benefit KSW put together for their families, and it was Queensryche acoustic, and then Duff McKagan's Loaded headlined. And we thought, what a fucking great opportunity to do some Guns tunes. This guy can sing high.
Could belt it, yeah, for sure.
And he can belt it, right? So we did, I don't even remember. I know we did the Paradise City and one other one, Night Train maybe. And he's great at being Jeff Tate, but he didn't deliver the goods on those tunes, buddy. I can tell you right now, it was not cool. And you can find it on YouTube if you want to have yourself a good laugh. It was as if he had never.
I thought this was going to go in a much different direction. I thought you were going to tell me he just fucking.
Buddy, it was like a dream of mine. Me was so pumped. Like I was just yes. Operation Mindcrime guy is gonna fucking I'm gonna be on stage and we're gonna do Guns N' Roses.
I love that record, but I loved that record.
But he stunk.
It was awesome.
It was as if he'd never heard the songs before.
That's bizarre. Well, maybe he was trying to do it on the fly. By the way, quick shout out to the producer of the last Mayfield record, Peter Collins. I believe also produced Operation Mindcrime. He would show up to dude. We could go on forever. It's just your audience doesn't want to hear this shit. But he would show up in the studio with Operation Mindcrime sweats, like sweatpants. and we got that. And he was the sweetest guy. He's still around. Peter Collins. Was the producer on that record, but just super proper English gentleman. Anyways, he would show up with his Operation Mindcrime sweatpants to the sessions. It was just on certain days, like his laundry days or whatever. And it was just like, holy fuck, this dude. I mean, this dude's balling right now. He's like in his Operation Mindcrime sweats. It's just like, oh shit.
That's like
Balling.
the satin tour jacket. I've always wanted to have tour jackets. I've never been in a band that was big enough to foot the bill for tour jackets.
Couch Riffs.
Touring happens in the summer. No one's wearing a goddamn jacket. You got to.
No, true. But Couch Riffs, I think your opportunities with Couch Riffs. Bring back the silk tour jackets, you know?
I think, you know, I'm going to be able to do it because I'm not going to tour a band. My band will be local to whatever town I'm in. I'll have a small crew. It'll be me, an audio person, and 2 camera people. So I can sport 4 coats, you know. I might even go like coveralls, like branded coveralls when we're loading in, and then we change. We change once we're done loading in. We don't want to get our nice clothes all dirty, you know, so we change out and then we have our satin jackets. See, this is why we went the extra 10 minutes.
Can you pick up an extra one for me?
Yeah, man, you got it. You got it. Oh, wait.
Thank you so much for this, dude. What?
Did you get your package in the mail yet?
No.
Oh, you got a package coming, buddy. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I love it.
You got a very special package that should be arriving any day.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Well,
I appreciate you. I like I said, appreciate this opportunity and love you, man. It's always a pleasure to connect with you.
Zia, you're the best. I can't wait. I can't wait till I can be in a room with you breathing the same air again.
We're going to do it soon. Thanks, man. Much love to you. Appreciate you.
Happy summer.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Ciao, baby. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.